Welcome to Video Game Reviews, and today we're going to be talking about Hyperlight Drifter Special Edition on the Nintendo Switch. This game's been around for a little while, if you haven't played it. It's kind of like a artistically stylized, sort of avant-garde take on the traditional old-school top-down Zelda-style game. And as you can see here, I would describe the visuals mostly as kind of minimalist pixel art. Minimalist style pixel art. And something else you may have noticed there, I don't know if you're really paying attention to that interaction, and we'll see it here too. So this is a shop in the game, and there's almost no text in this game, and as you'll see, there's no item description on what it is that you're looking at in the shop. There's not really even text to tell you what it is that you're looking at buying. Okay, and so here's a story sequence, or quote-unquote dialogue, and it's presented with these kind of cryptic images. You're like, well, I haven't played the game. I'm sure if I play the game, it'll all make a lot more sense, and that would be false. These images look as random to you as they did to me playing the game. And even, I've finished the game. I've played through the whole thing. And so that really gets to my major gripe of the entire game. Visually, I think it's great. The audio, the music is kind of, you can hear in the background. It's kind of, I guess you'd call it like a ambient retro wave kind of thing. The presentation overall is very similar to a game called Fez that you may be familiar with. I just feel like the artistic style, I mean, obviously Fez was doing something with a pseudo 3D effect that you don't see here, but aside from that, I would say that there are definitely some similarities to be had between the two. So back to the telling of the story. I almost feel like, and I'm sure there are people out there that would strongly disagree, and they love the cryptic nature of the story, but for me personally, it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. I feel like if you're going to tell, let's say you go to a party, and someone tells you, hey, I got this great story. Hey, I got this great story that I want to tell you, and then they just hand you a series of 3 or 4 pictures, and that no explanation, and that's a garbage story. Nobody wants to hear that story. I mean, it might be sort of novel if somebody does that once or twice. I guess it would be weird or quirky, perhaps, but someone who does that every time that they tell you they have a great story and then they just hand you 3 or 4 pictures, you would think, okay, well, this person's insane and I don't think I want to hear any more of their stories, right? I mean, I would. But I tend to have a similar attitude towards films that leave you with an ambiguous ending. Now, some people like that. They like the idea that it's left to the viewer's interpretation. I personally disagree. I feel like if you take on the task of telling a story, then it's part of your job to finish the story, and not doing so explicitly it seems kind of lazy to me. And again, I know there are people that will argue the other side of that, and that's fine. They're entitled to that opinion. But I disagree. I don't even think it's really a functional story at that point. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about no text, no explanation, no story really to speak of, which is fine. Not every game has to be a story or has to have a strong story. That's fine by me. But I personally feel like the game would have been a stronger experience for me if they had gone one of 2 ways with it. They could have either just neglected a story entirely. No story whatsoever, just gameplay. That would have been fine. Another way that they could have gone is They could have kept the story concise and simple. They could have went with very little text, but enough to explain what was happening. And they didn't do either of those things. All right, so now that I think you've probably got the gist of my complaint for the game, I just want to say that the boss battles are I found them extremely difficult. I did some searching online. It does seem like people tend to agree with me. The boss battles are extremely difficult, but doable if you are determined. And so I have to tell you that this is one of the most rewarding games that I've beaten in a little while. It was very, very satisfying to complete. However, I do have to add in there that once I finished the game, I got the credits to roll. I am pretty much done with this, and I'm sure there are people that replay it all the time. There are probably speed runs out there. I don't personally see myself going through this game maybe ever again. Certainly not anytime soon. And again, that's not to disparage it. It was a great experience, but not one that I feel like I really need to replay. So is it worth it? I mean, this is a pretty highly regarded indie title. It really is. But I would give it, personally, maybe a 7 out of 10. The combat's great, the dashing mechanic, so you have a sword, you eventually get a grenade that you can throw that recharges as time passes, and you also have bullets, and you eventually wind up with several different types of guns, and you reload your ammunition by attacking with your sword. So it's got a great kind of balance there with the types of attacks that you need to mix up and use. Also, another thing that you will see me doing here, or you'll notice that, I don't know if you've seen this game before, but you'll notice that for most of the footage that I captured, I'm actually playing as not the main character. This is a different character that I got, I think, after completing the game. And his sword, I think, has a better reach on it, and not a whole lot of additional differences other than that, from what I saw. Alright, now this is important. So throughout the course of the game, you're trying to find these triangles. I don't know if that sounds familiar to anyone, but yeah, you're trying to find these triangles. You have to find a minimum of 16 throughout the game, and you'll see that when you find one, it unlocks this thing back in the hometown. And when you find all 16, that thing in the center of the hometown becomes an elevator, which you can then take to descend beneath the town and confront the final boss. Nothing in this game is explained to you, which that's the part that I can kind of respect, because it does have that in common with the original Legend of Zelda, and I have a lot of nostalgia for that game in the fact that all of the story in the original Legend of Zelda is either in the instruction manual or in some scrolling text, maybe, I don't remember, maybe 2 paragraphs worth of scrolling text at the beginning of the game. And then you're plunked into this world and there's almost no text, and it's all gameplay. And I just personally feel like the Legend of Zelda executed that concept much better than this game. But I see that that's kind of what they were going for here, the sort of, hey, here's a game, you figure it out, that we experienced back in the day with the original Legend of Zelda. And so I respect them for that, and I respect them for pulling it off pretty well. This is a satisfying game to explore and to play around with. like I said, it's got a good challenge to it. Okay, you see that thing that he just collected there? That is currency. And so that's what you use to buy the upgrades throughout the game. So that's pretty much everything that I have to say about this game, I think. So I guess the ultimate question, like the reason you might be looking for videos on this, you know, you might be wondering, like, should I buy this game? Or should I pass? And I would say the game's worth playing, in my opinion. If you can get it on a sale, great. Should this be at the top of your list? Maybe not.